how do we rapidly accelerate our production of toilets and systems to help us to achieve an open defecation-free country by 2025, which basically is 5 years from now. The minister did mention that India provided 500 million toilet people for 5 years. So it's possible if we're having to provide for the 6 million people, which is just about 10% of what India achieved. But the question is, what are the pillars that India established? What are the things we can learn from India's experience and how we can use that to help ourselves? And then, of course, she talked about the challenges of climate change in itself and how it affects toilets. So she talked about the impact of climate change. She talked about flooding and droughts, which are the two significant impacts, which, of course, are a product of too much water or not enough water. So it's the linkage between water, sanitation, and hygiene is coming up again in that. She talked about some solutions that she thinks that we should consider. She talks very cleverly about services that last, and I think that's very critical. How do we ensure that we have services that last? She talked about knowledge, innovation, and technology that can help us to achieve all of this. She also talked about having water in the center and in the heart of the climate change discussion. Just like we have said, climate change is manifested through too much water or too little water. So we need to have the water sector in the center of climate discussions. And under solutions, she also talked about, based on the previous comments, the need to advocate for financing for WASH under the climate change conversations and climate change fund. There's climate change. How does the water sector assess some of this funding? And then, of course, she provided us strategies, and she talked about the role of government and other stakeholders. I think that gives us an overview of what Dr. did speak about. But so I would want to come to the panel, and I'm not going to follow the pattern that is on. Look a bit more at how do we make sure that the suggestions that Madam has given and some of the knowledge that we bring from the field can help us to achieve this. But to start the conversation off, there's a question of, what is the motivation? What are the extra things that we need, that we can get from doing it right, that can help to inspire people to get involved in the sanitation sector? So, if I already have a toilet, why should I bother? If my children are going to a school that already has water systems, there's no question of using latrine, why should I bother? What are the extra things that sanitation had to the society that become an incentive, for everybody to be involved in this? I want to come to Ms. Jahal, to Dr. Dawal, to talk a bit about this. Are there opportunities for job creation? Are there opportunities for economic advancement? Does it help? What else does sanitation do for us that could be reasons why we want to be involved? If you could speak to this for 2 minutes, I will appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Timei. Thank you, Madam, for that in-depth insight that you gave on the general topic, sustainable sanitation and climate change. The society stands to gain so much in several ways that we may not be able to comprehend, why in the short time we're here. Let me start by saying that these benefits are cross-cutting. They are not limited to just one sector or one aspect of our lives. For instance, there are the effects. We are not dwelling on the effects for now, but there are the effects of sanitation not being adequate, not being sustainable, that border around even the educational sector that have to do, for instance, with girls and children. A lot of girls tend to miss school because of lack of access, the hardware, facilities for managing their menstruation well. They tend to miss school several days in every month. That will be avoided. And so that translates to empowerment of girls and eventually women. That has to do with SDG number 5. Also, there is the issue of the health aspect that affects almost everybody. We have a lot of illnesses, diseases that are associated with fecal contamination, defecation. That will also be avoided. And with that, there would be a direct impact in productivity. You have people coming to work. Sometimes people miss work because of common illnesses that are associated with contamination.
Do we involve, and how do we involve them? Nampet, I don't know if you can bring field experience to that conversation.
Thank you very much. Just listening, 2 days ago we were having a conversation with one of our partners as we were looking at our program and business. People will buy into it. And I recall also something from someone who said, there's no dirty money. The fact that I got it from digging a pit, I'm a mason, or you got it from selling from a shop, there are opportunities. We're looking at the toilets. The minister has mentioned it, and we have 5 years to do that. We are looking at the SDGs that are now open defecation free. We need to think of upgrades. Every one of us use a phone. As soon as Android phones came up, we wanted to upgrade. Every other year, iPhones come out and everybody wants the next model. Why don't we do that with sanitation? Why? It has a direct link to our dignity and our well-being. I should be excited to upgrade my latrine, but think of the converse. If you were the one selling, if you were the one constructing latrines, if we saw a model in India. They trained 1 million female masons, and their job is not to construct buildings, just construct pit latrines. If we take it to this point, then it's going to take us forward. The LGA chairman that came here excitedly to receive certificates, can we start at that level? Can we see where we can empower people to think of the business side of this? People will be excited. We have young people. There will be people engaged.
For the water because it is affordable, and then they can have their toilets work well, properly flushed, and the place is safe. That way you have a cyclical effect within the community where there's water for sanitation, water for other uses, and people's dignity and health are maintained. That's practical field experience that we're trying to do in some of our states, as like we have in Enugu presently. You just talked about private sector. Where there's profit, the private sector will invest. But that investment will not be at the expense of jobs. It will not be at the expense of profit making. And so they need some support to be able to do this profitably and also do social service. Because usually the dichotomy between profit making and social service has always been the challenge, the nexus, to ensure that, because our private sector requires time, sometimes investment, long time to make profit. So that is where innovative funding must come in. We talk about the blue bond, we talk about the green bond. We're talking about climate change, for instance, and facilities available. Can the Federal Ministry of Environment sit down sometime in one meeting of the AMCAO, the Federal Ministry of Budget, issuing green bonds for the wash sector? Can the Federal Ministry of Environment sit down with the Ministry of Finance and say, in terms of sanitation, fecal sludge management, the use, the treatment, and the reuse of things like fecal sludge for organic manure, can we make a case that this is climate friendly, that will support climate smart agriculture, and that we ensure that we have organic manure that in a way also contributes to what you have around carbon credit, and factor innovative finance that will support the private sector to invest in this sector at the forefront of advocating for a philanthropy law in our nation. Can we encourage the private sector? We talk about tax credit. We talk about, for instance, tax for infrastructure that is supporting road construction in some of our places. Can we encourage the private sector with some funding and say, if you invest in climate resilient infrastructure for hygiene and sanitation, we are going to ensure that you get some credit that ensures that you are able to remain profitable, but yet you contribute to infrastructure. We have we must consider sustainable sanitation has infrastructure component. Toilets require money. You need to build them. And if you are going to upgrade, you need resources. So one of the things that government can do is to make these things possible and accessible. And for local production, for the local economy, where you need to import, can we ensure that they have tax waivers that allow them to bring in so that this can be affordable and accessible? And where it has to be locally produced, can we stimulate a domestic economy? In one of the countries, by doing this, about 1,000 SMEs, the startups, started working and surviving and creating jobs because they were given the enabling environment. These are the kind of things that government can do to ensure that private sector access capital that is not too expensive, the cost of doing business, and they can invest in this sector in a profitable manner, create jobs, and ensure also that we have sustainable sanitation.
Please, let's put our hands together for our panelists. We've gone around the panel. I would like to bring the conversation to the group, but I will still come back to Dr. Dosa as we go. We've heard from the three panelists. We'll come back to them for a second round. But I want to hear from the crowd or from the audience. We are all part of this stakeholder group. Nampet spoke about the number of toilets that we have to build. So let's take only the 46 million that don't have toilets today. Average family size is 5, isn't it? So we need to build 10 million toilets, right? In 5 years. So we need to build 2 million toilets every year, right? That's 2 million doors, 2 million wash hand basins, 2 million sato pans, 2 million, think of it, slabs, if you want to put slabs, pits, 2 million shovels, if possible, you know. Where do you get involved? Who is an entrepreneur in this group? Who is a startup person? I want to hear from you guys. We don't want to hear about complaints. We want to hear about what is possible. Our youth corpers, you guys will soon get into the labor market. This is an opportunity. What can we do? What do you need to help you to, within the next 1 year, to start up a business production, a toilet business production facility or business? But while you are thinking about that, maybe I should come to Dr. Dosa. You've heard the panel. You've heard from their perspective. What will be your reflection? Looking now at solutions to go forward. 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We've heard from the panel, and I've also been a field person for some years now. I think we're doing a lot, but in scattered